All right, it's another week, another What the F Happened. So I am so excited to be here with Mr. Snaggy and the one and only Lazy Cash. TikTok, you can't see him, but oh yes, he's here. There's his little tail. He is always present for these. Even though he's sleeping, it's okay. He's absorbing this just like you all should, because in the news this week, there are a lot of stories. We're going to talk about these stories, and here's what they are. First off, I want to talk about Musk's $55 billion, okay, that was in his package, his pay package when he hit the metrics. It's being voided by a judge. This is pretty much, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but I haven't heard about this, where the government or judges are stepping in, telling people they're making too much money. We're not going to allow you to be paid. Now, they're sitting there saying, yes, but it's a publicly traded company and that jeopardizes stockholders. It was an agreement built in that if he hit his metrics, he got this $55 billion package, or at least that's what it works out to be. But a judge says no. In Delaware, a friendly state to corporations, well, I guess liberal judges have a different standpoint on that. We're going to hit on Trump's the trial that's been going on and how he was basically she was awarded $83 million. Is that excessive? Is the liberal judge being a little bit too aggressive with that one? Well, we're going to hit that one today and get some opinions on that. But also today is the day where the Fed makes the announcement. Largely, they're talking about holding rates, but in the fine print of that or that report, I'm sure we're going to get a better idea of where we're headed with the Fed. Rates going up, rates staying, or are rates going to go down? Because they did open the door for 3 rate decreases this year, and markets, Wall Street, built in 5, actually maybe even 6. So let's talk about that. And there's so much more. And one of the biggest things we've talked about and covered a lot here is leading indicators. If you want to know where you're going, what data do you look at? One of the best leading indicators to see where we're going is logistics. And we're going to talk about UPS's massive layoff, but not just UPS. We're going to go down the line of all the companies that have been doing layoffs that the news hasn't really been covering, because the news wants to paint this pretty picture of the economy being good and a soft landing. I call the bluff. We're not soft landing. We're headed to a recession. There's no other place this can go. It's just when. And that's the magic thing. So you are joining us for another episode of What the F Happened. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are going back. I was having a little chat with one of our TikTok followers, Swamp Monster. So we're going to get into that one in a second. But, Stephen, what's happening down there in Florida?
Hey, good morning. Florida just seems to continue to lead the way as a state for laws and what we're doing down here. Now that DeSantis is back running the state, he's not on the campaign trail anymore. And so a lot to get to. Sometimes, Chris, I wish that this was a full-time job producing this show, because there's so much news. So I'm going to try and keep up today. I'll try and pull articles. This is not our full-time gig. This is something fun we do once a week where we can just rant a little bit and rave a little bit about what's going on. We try and tie it always back to your money and how the markets and all this news and all this policy is driving your money in the markets and everything else. But I'll try and keep up today. But there's so much going on. It might be tough. So we'll dive right into this. But life is good down here in Florida. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna get right into it, because there's just a lot of information, and Lazy Cash is just ready to dive right in. As you can see, he is sleeping as usual, but his tail's wagging. So everybody over here on TikTok sees the little kitty's tail. But let's dive into. Let me talk a little bit about the Fed. So the Fed's going to make an announcement today. Largely, most of the indicators are saying that they're going to hold rates, okay? But they're going to hold rates in light of the economy showing 2 different signs. Number one, inflation going up because people are still spending money, because people are still employed. but that seems to be fracturing a little bit. And secondarily, we're seeing some weaknesses on some of the leading indicators, which we're definitely going to cover. But one of the other things that, we covered a while ago, and I think a lot of people have just forgotten about this, but you remember last year, a couple banks went belly up. Yeah, that was big news. We were all over that. I made YouTube videos on that explaining why it happened. But, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, the FDIC, okay, when you put money in a bank, the FDIC insures you for how much? Can anyone tell me how much FDIC guarantees at the bank? Like if you have an account value of what, how much do they guarantee? For any of you that comment 250,000, good job. That's the amount. But you see, when Silicon Valley Bank and Republic and all these other banks, there's many of them that you didn't even really hear about, when they all went belly up, the Fed or the FDIC came in and said, hey, we're going to bail everybody out. Not just people with 250,000. We're going to bail out people with 2.5 million and people with 25 million. I don't know the numbers, but I would assume that they had some big players in there because that was a tech specific bank. So they just bailed everybody out, which drained the FDIC. But how did they prevent the same thing that happened to those banks from happening to all the other banks, the regionals out there? There was a lot of them. Well, I got an economic report that tells exactly what that is. So one of the interesting things that happened during that period of time was the Fed stepped in. And I don't know if you remember this, but Silicon Valley Bank, Sovereign Bank, Republic, that was March of 2023. They had billions of dollars of uninsured deposits. Well, if any of you think that's a problem, it was. So the rising interest rates that the Fed was doing, they were jumping rates up. What it did is it led to banks having very little liquidity because banks buy treasury bonds. Like I've been telling so many of, people that I've been buying a lot of treasury bonds now, but I've been buying them low. Remember, Warren Buffett says, buy low, sell high. See, banks previous to the increases in rates, lower or interest rates were really low. After the pandemic, they were close to zero or actually at zero. So if the banks were buying treasury bonds during that period, they were way overpaying for those treasury bonds because when rates are low, price is high of bonds. Okay. But then the Fed jumped rates up and the price of those bonds crashed down, meaning when there was the run on the banks, we all remember that March of last year, the banks had to go into the reserve accounts and banks only keep about 10% in reserves between BOLI and treasury bonds. Well, when there's a run on the bank, all these people wanted their money back. And that happens really quick in today's world because it's not like walking into a bank anymore like we used to do. Now you just go online, you just transfer all the money out of your account into another account pretty quick. So when that happened, it created a massive issue. Banks ran out of liquidity. And what happened? They went insolvent. But here's what the Fed did. They came up with the BTFP. Now, they always have these interesting names. The BTFP, which what it did, the Treasury and the Fed allowed banks to literally pledge these Treasury bonds at par value, at full market value. Even though they were way underwater with these Treasury bonds, they allowed them to collateralize a loan that the Fed gave to the banks to support them. So they had liquidity. So the bank would say, hey, we got all these undervalued bonds because of what you guys just did with interest rates. We will give you these bonds. But see, the Fed said, yeah, but we're going to value these bonds at par. We're going to value these bonds at market value because how the Fed looked at it is these are bonds we issued. So if we issued these bonds, someday we got to pay them back. It might be 30 years from now, but we'll give you full value. So the banks literally took an asset that, let's just pretend an asset's worth $70. And they gave it to the Fed as collateral, and the Fed gave them $100. How many of you would love that? You got an old car, okay, and that old car is worth $70. But you take it to the bank, and the bank gives you $100. How many of you would be all about that? You can add some zeros and actually add billions. So that's what they did. But so banks got this big infusion of literally not free, but pretty close to free money by pledging treasury bonds that were underwater. Now, all that sounds awesome, and banks loved it. We talk about spread all the time here when we're talking about be your own bank and private banking systems and the infinite banking concept. That's what we teach every single day. If you want to learn more, watch the 90-minute video in the bio on YouTube. My YouTube is at the Chris Naugle, or just ask us and we'll send you the video and you'll understand what the infinite banking concept is. But we're all about the spread. the insurance company pays us this interest rate and only charges us that. We're making a spread, and every year we're making more. Well, the banks do the same damn thing. Okay, banks usually do it because they pay you a low interest rate on your deposits and they charge you a high interest rate on the loans. But now what the bank was able to do is tap into this whole program that they came up with, the BTFP, and they got a whole bunch of free money. How much? Well, let's see. I got those numbers right here. So they, let's see, the BTFP jumped to more than $50 billion in the first few days when they opened that up. But hold on, it gets way better. And then went to $107 billion as troubled banks came clean. But in the last couple months of 2023, the first few weeks of 2024, ideally right now, it ballooned to $167 million. Why would that happen? Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't banks take advantage of that? Why wouldn't banks be like, hey, I'll take some of that free money? And the banks get that money at an interest rate literally that you would all beg and you would do a lot of things to get the rates that the banks are getting. And, it's so the Fed charged 4.9%. So check this out. This is even better. The Fed charged 4.9%. That's how much they paid on this. But remember, these bonds that the banks had were paying an average of about 5.4. So the bonds that they have, they're still getting interest on those bonds, even though they're collateralizing them. Then they're making 5.4%, but then they're paying the Fed back 4.9. How many of you like those apples? We love it. This is what we do every day in private banking, folks. This is why I'm so passionate about this. But here's the kick in the nuts. Okay, this whole program, this free money thing ends soon. That's right. It ends really soon. I'm trying to look through this article and figure out where it ends, but it's coming up to an end in the next couple months. So literally, the Fed gave all this free money, not free, but very inexpensive money, okay, using assets that the banks already had, but they gave them more than what the assets were worth. They charged them less than what the Treasury was paying them on these bonds. So now they're making a spread here. The bank gets all this money. The bank lends that money back out to you and makes another spread. Shit, man, I wish we could do what the Fed and banks could do, but we can't. We can only make one, maybe two spreads on how we do it. So when this thing ends, are the banks going to have the money to just pay this back? How's this thing going to unfold? Is the Fed just going to kick the can and be like, oh, guys, we're just going to extend it? Or are they not? I don't know. But something to keep your eye on. Sorry I went long on that, but that's it's pretty wild, and it just makes you want to be a bank. Literally, it makes me want to go open a traditional bank and tap into all this free money. But I don't want the regulation and the control that would be put on me. But in other news, China. Okay, so this is a good one. So I've read a lot about China, and we all know China's a world power, right? We know that they're a rival to the US. They're now trying to work heavily with India and Russia in the BRICS to try to create a currency that will rival the dollar. I wouldn't worry about that anytime in the near future, but in the future, I would definitely think that will become an issue. And China's, I think, eventually, going to try to take over as the world power. I mean, listen, Ray Dalio talks about that in all of his videos, the economic machine and all of that. But here's the thing. So on China's rise, are we getting the whole picture? Well, the news says something different than what I'm reading here because China faces almost insurmountable issues in the coming decades, not years, but the coming decades. But the country has trillions of dollars in reserves, and at this time, they've yet to unleash a financial flooding like we did, during the pandemic here. They have not done that. They've literally let certain industries like the real estate industry and the greater economy just get freaking hammered. Have you guys paid attention to how bad China looks right now? Like they're down like 33%. Their markets are down like 33%, while our markets are touching all-time highs. Well, until just a few days ago. So when you think about this, what is China doing? Well, China's doing what they're always doing, not telling anyone what they're doing. But I will tell you that there's some big issues right now in the real estate sector. Primarily, there was a couple banks or real estate development companies, but People's Bank of China, the PBOC, cut the reserve requirement just before the state-owned securities daily announced that China's medium and long-term investment funds would buy $406 billion in stock to give a boost to their economy. And they're also over there at that Davos thing that they did. The spokesperson, okay, the Chinese premier Ling, I don't know how to say it, Quang, said the Chinese economy expanded by 5.2%. How did Chinese economy expand 5.2? Oh, hold on. Pretty easy to expand by 5.2 when you shut your whole freaking country down for COVID for an extended period of time, and you're just measuring off of that. We grew 5.2% from when? From the pandemic. We grew 5.2. How many of you think that would be a hard thing to do? You see, we're not getting the whole story as it comes to China. So I would say if any of you are looking to invest abroad, you're looking to invest in any international stocks, make sure they don't have too much China exposure in them, because it ain't looking so freaking good. And you know what? If you do have Chinese exposure, you're probably not liking it. All right. That was a mouthful. Evergrande. Yep. That was the one, David. And then there was a bunch of other ones, but those are the two big ones. Okay. So just be cautious and weary of China in the news you're hearing about it. And I would stay far, far away from any investments in China. If you want international investments, I would look at India, but that would be about it. But let's come back, Stephen. Let's talk a second. You're a huge Elon Musk fan. And I know you've got opinions on what Delaware's liberal judge, let me make sure I point that out. Now, does anyone know, like, we did pledge that in 2024, we were going to talk politics against the grain, against what a lot of people want? Yeah, we're going to piss some people off. So I'm just going to call it how it is. The liberal judge that was overseeing this. Stephen, do you want to talk a little bit about what just happened? And then we'll get to Jim Collins' comment here from YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think I respect Elon Musk because he seems to call it like it is. He seems to forge his own path. I mean, the guy is shooting rockets to space every other day. I mean, I watch him right out my back of my house right here. Like, it's incredible. He has one of the most successful American car companies in the history of this country with Tesla, and he's done things with electric cars that nobody else has done. Since he became the CEO and took over Tesla, the company's grown by tenfold, by 10x. And many say that there's no other CEO in the world that could have done what he did with Tesla. Just this week, he successfully implanted something called a Neuralink into the brains of humans, with the idea that of quadriplegics are able to now control computers and electronics just with their brains. So he's like literally doing that. He has the Boring Company. What am I missing here? He has X, which is the social media site of the world for independent journalism and free speech and fighting against everything that's wrong in the world, in my opinion. And this is one guy. So
you like Elon. You're definitely an Elon fan. I mean, I can't see it any other way, but I mean, I think Stephen likes Elon, right?
Incredible to me. Absolutely. 100%. And so, to me, he deserves everything he gets. And the kicker to all of it is for Elon. I've listened to his biographies and I've read about him, and he truly seems to not care about the money. Like he literally gives everything away, and he'll risk it all just to follow his beliefs. He'll do things for companies that are following what he believes are right, not necessarily just to make money. So it's not even about the money. So when you see him get this pay from a deal that was put in place years ago, that was approved by the board, approved by the shareholders, and just this there's no other way to call it, just this liberal judge that doesn't like Elon Musk for whatever reason, to step in and just say, for no other reason than, I don't think this is fair. It's an unfathomable amount of money that he's getting paid, and for no other reason. That's insane to me. And then you couple that on top of what else is going on in this country with some of these judges. I mean, I'm no fan of Donald Trump. I know you like him. I respect what he's done. And, if he's the Republican candidate, I'll definitely vote for him. But at the end of the day, like, I just don't think he's great for the country and everything. But nonetheless of that, like, to see what just happened in New York with him this week, where the judge awarded that I call her a crazy later because I've seen the interviews with Anderson Cooper on CNN. I saw her interview after the case was decided and she was awarded the $80-some million. Her and Rachel Maddow, like, I watched that interview. The lady, and what she said, happened that day with Trump. And It's bizarro world. And for that judge to order 80 some million dollars on, it's just crazy to me. And then the other 4 lawsuits against him that are just stretches, and then we see what's going on with some of the a lot of the illegal immigration in this country and everything else with the January 6 people. I don't know how else you look at it than it's lawfare. It's judges, the justice system, the Justice Department attacking people for no other reason outside of their politics. And just the fact that Elon is so famous and to see that happen, it just kind of puts it all on display. And so that's what I'll say about that. And I don't think it's good for the country. I don't think it's going to end well. And it just divides and creates more division and divisiveness. And that's not what is needed right now in these days. So I'll leave it at that, Chris.
Yeah, no. So, and I love the fact that you don't like Trump, and I do. And that's the beauty of being in the United States. We can like who we want, not like who we don't want, and all come together in the middle. I mean, the freedoms that we have here to vote for who we want, and the freedom to bear arms, and all the freedoms we have in this country that were all written in the Constitution basically gives us that ability. And I think that's the most dynamic thing, because you don't have that in China. You certainly don't have that in Korea. You don't have that in Russia. You freaking vote who we tell you to vote for. But in this country, it is pretty unique. How the things you're starting to see, and I am going to just call it out, the liberal judges and anyone else, that's watching, I'd love your opinion on this, but are literally just writing almost the law. They're almost just making the law whatever they want it to based on personal biases against people, whether it's Trump or Elon. I mean, folks, I want you to think about this. Like, let's just say you work for a company or you run a company and you have the board, basically comes up with your compensation plan. Okay. Based on hard work that you're going to put in, based on performances, based on metrics that you have to hit, like all these things, the board grants you a compensation package that pretty much for any entrepreneur or any person in sales, like literally there's no cap, right? There's no ceiling to how much you can earn. If you produce, you earn more. In sales, just think, if you sell more goods, you make more, in commissions, and there's no cap to it. Just keep selling more and you make more. Well, Elon did the unthinkable and what everybody bet against them to do. He took Tesla to literally I don't want to say the moon, but he took it to levels that most people never could have dreamed he could have done. Made a lot of stockholders shit tons of money on the stock because the company is doing so well, selling lots of cars, highly profitable business operation, largely due to one man's vision, Elon Musk, and largely due to the way he has run that company, which is very different than the way a lot of companies are run. So in result of his compensation package, which wasn't just the board saying, we're going to give you a bunch of money. Okay. It was all based on his performance as the CEO, as the owner of the company and what he did. And that resulted in $55 billion is what it was. So I want you to think about it. This is you. You have a compensation package, you maximize it, and you're due a really big payout. And you're super pumped about it, right? And with this payout, you're going to do a bunch of big things. You're going to put a bunch more Starlinks up. You're going to help humanity. You're going to basically help humankind. You're going to give money and do things that nobody else is willing to do because they don't have the fucking balls. But he does. And then this liberal judge comes in and says, Elon, you can't have that money, even though that's what you did, even though you earned that, even though your compensation package that the board approved, says all this. I don't like you. So I'm just going to basically not allow you to get $55 billion because that's not fair. Oh, how? Why? It's a private company. Like, where does a judge step into a private company? Oh, because they're publicly traded, right? And this $55 billion comp package is going to somehow affect stockholders. I'm sure that's what it is. But if you read this article, it's pretty wild. It's absolutely beyond wild that this is actually happening. And I don't know how anyone else thinks about it, but, his net worth would drop to $154.3 billion. Oh, darn. Yeah. I mean, that's the magnitude. So if this ruling, in the appeals stick, if he actually doesn't get this, it's going to drop his net worth to $154.3 billion. It's not about whether or not it's going to affect Elon's standard of living or anything else. It's about where do we draw the line between private and government, right? Where do we actually allow private companies to do what they do if they're not doing anything illegal or fraudulent or anything like that? Where's the line drawn? Well, I think that line is being breached heavily. And then Trump is another example. Like, you know, whether or not he did or did not do the things that were said, like an $83 million lawsuit award to this woman. Like, okay, maybe Bill Clinton actually inhaled, maybe he didn't. But nobody sued his ass saying you lied, you should have just inhaled, or you shouldn't have inhaled. Like nobody bastardized him, you know, nobody sued him over that. I know we're talking two different things, folks. Yeah. I'm just trying to be funny here. I know that's not funny, but go ahead, Stephen.
And here's the kicker of it at the end of the day, Chris, is like, you know, this ruling doesn't just affect Elon Musk, but what does it do to the state of Delaware? I mean, you know, in the last, 10, 15 years, I've spent my life in the real estate investment world, owning businesses, working with attorneys and accountants, teaching others how to control their wealth, how to control their future by starting businesses and investing. And we've always, I've always heard from attorneys that Delaware is a great state to incorporate in. It allows a lot of freedoms for companies, a lot of private, it allows you to stay private. It's lawsuit, when it comes to lawsuits and things like that, it protects you as the business owner, and we've heard that for time and time again. So the result of that is a lot of people choosing to incorporate their companies in the state of Delaware, which increases the state of Delaware's revenues. And so what does something like this do to the state of Delaware? I mean, if I'm going to incorporate a new company right now, and my attorney recommends Delaware, what am I going to say, Chris? Hell no. Why would I incorporate there? And this isn't unprecedented either. It's happened in history. So Elon actually posted this article last night after all of this happened. And this was a Wall Street Journal article. Does that pop up when I?
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
That's all right. I'll just read it. I'll just give you the highlights. So this was a Wall Street Journal article from 2023 that basically said Delaware is trying hard to drive away corporations. Flirtation with ESG is jeopardizing its status as a preferred destination for corporate headquarters. And it just goes on to talk about how Delaware wasn't always the go-to state for corporate law. And if it escalates its flirtation with environmental, social, and governance investment principles, the first state might end up losing its privileged status, just like its neighbor once did. And then it goes on to talk about how New Jersey was once the mother of trusts in the 19th century. But then Governor Woodrow Wilson in 1913 set out to correct perceived abuses by making executives liable for corporate irresponsibility. And just it talks a little bit about how a lot of companies flee the state because of that ruling, because it changed the rules. And then, years later, they tried to turn that back around, but it was too late. The damage was already done. And so now we have Elon Musk going out saying, do not incorporate in Delaware. I'm moving Tesla's governing documents to Texas. So he's leaving the state. And so, when things like this happen, it affects a lot more than just, Tesla and Elon Musk. It affects everybody that lives in the state of Delaware. And it's not good for anybody. So it's just wild to see this kind of stuff happening right now.
Well, I knew we'd pull out some haters, and that's kind of what we were trying to do. I said some pretty outlandish stuff there in a second. So I had to come over here to TikTok, my favorite site for the haters. And I just wanted to point out some of the things that were said over here, because we got our haters hot and heavy right now. So coming in from Will Not Bow said, selling whole life as an investment. So what I think Will Not Bow is referring to is, he or she is trying to say that we're selling whole life as an investment. Let me just correct Will Not Bow. Whole life has never been an investment, because an investment involves risk, and a whole life policy is guaranteed contractually. So right there, I have to dismiss that comment, because that's definitely not what we're doing. We're not selling whole life as an investment. We're actually not selling anything. We're teaching. Big difference between selling and teaching, Will Not Bow. We are teaching a process called the infinite banking concepts, which teaches people how to take back the banking functions in their life. Does it use a whole life, a specially designed and engineered whole life policy as the machine to run money through? Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that you can learn about in the videos that I have on my YouTube or right in the bio, but Will Not Bow needs to understand whole life is not, never has been, never will be, and definitely is not sold by us as an investment. So dismissed. But I had to just call that out. Thanks, Will Not Bow. Thanks for joining. Starlink, somebody said Trump for prison 2024. So we got CEO, can't even read it. T155 says Trump for prison 2024. Let's see. Cat's tail's in the way. Let's see. You would have to find something he is guilty of first. I don't know if that's that. He is guilty of 91 felonies, only out on bail for now. I'm just reading them. Okay. Y'all stand behind the law until it doesn't work for your favor. Then it's the administration of it. Okay. He is accused, not guilty. Big difference. You could be charged with 91 counts as well. Okay, so that's somebody coming in arguing it. This is pretty funny. Like that's why I'm not even making any comments. I'm just watching it. He was impeached for lying. So they're referring to, I think Clinton, was impeached for lying about Monica Lewinsky. I didn't say anything about Monica Lewinsky. I was talking about whether or not he inhaled marijuana or not. But okay, so he was impeached for lying. Monica lying about the inhaling. I guess it's all the same thing. Has anyone ever really looked at the economy and how the economy and the markets did under Clinton? You should probably look at that. Clinton wasn't my favorite president. Did I agree with the things he did? Absolutely not. Did he run the country fairly well? Yeah, some would say he inherited a good economy, but if you look at his stats for the economy, okay, and how we ran the country, didn't do so bad, okay? Not saying I'm a Clinton fan. I'm just simply saying didn't do so bad. Okay, Trump, whoa, holy cow, we got a lot. Trump is guilty. You don't need a law degree to see that, but the law tends to benefit the wealthy. I don't think the law is benefiting Trump. The law just fucked him with an $83 or $83 million lawsuit. So I don't know where you think the law is actually benefiting Trump. The law has done nothing but just go after him. And now he's got, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but $83 million, quite a bit of money. Yep. Hey, kitty. Sir, you're having a logical conversation. Trump is a scalpel for our messed up government. You don't love the scalpel, but it cuts out infection. Whoa. I think Derby old man. Trump is a scalpel for our messed up government. You don't love the scalpel. Yeah, scalpels are scary, but scalpels are used to cut out cancer, aren't they? Man. Well said. Is it like an IUL? Absolutely not. Very, very different.
People forgot that Trump was president for 4 years, and I feel like he didn't actually do anything on that front. He had good policy.
He really didn't. It's kind of like Clinton. If you look at Trump and Clinton, we just did a YouTube video, which will be going up soon. That'll piss some more people off, where we basically just show Trump in office, how the economy did, and you got to kind of almost weed out the pandemic because everything just fell off there. But you can look at all of it before. So the 3 years before, you can compare it to Clinton, Bush, Obama, and it's pretty interesting to see. But you're right. But also, too, you got to kind of look at when Trump was in office. Pretty much everything, including the kitchen sink, was thrown at him. So he's fighting a lot of battles. Listen, you don't have to like Trump. That's the beauty. You can like Kennedy, vote for Kennedy. Hell, you can vote for a Democratic Party. Please, if you vote for the dude, I just can't understand what I'm not seeing that you are. Happy to have a debate or a discussion about that, because I don't know, Stephen, has the dude done a good job running this country?
Because we're about to get into another major war. War with Iran will lead to World War III.
1,000%.
You're almost
like pushing that.
That's 100% because of the dude.
100%. Listen, and that is not open for discussion, because
we're talking about the southern border today. What about the millions?
We're going to hit that. Let's see. So I'm just want to make sure I get to
not doing a good job.
Did you watch the trial for Biden because you couldn't keep because he couldn't keep his mouth shut? Love President Trump, old man D. Yeah. So, just comments coming in. I just wanted to read them, just so everybody kind of gets it. What do we got over here on YouTube? We got anything good coming in on YouTube before we move on? Because there's a lot more to cover, but I just, when we kind of hit a stride here and we hit a nerve, it's always funny just to see what comes in. It sets a really bad precedent. Let's see. Early days, the intro. Yep. Morning. Passport Bros. Just trying to find something here. Oh, what did I just walk into? Damien's like, Trump will appeal and she's not getting that money, LOL, because if the people would understand how many red flags there are, yeah, well, we'll see what happens. But I mean, basically the whole point of that discussion was, we looked at Elon and how a liberal judge just slapped him, or basically voided his $55 billion pay package, which was agreed on. And then we just came over to Trump just because that was a liberal judge too, that just slapped him with an $83 million award, awarded an $83 settlement or lawsuit for that. Let's see. Is transhumanist? That's anti-God. Elon is a transhumanist. Sorry,
I think talking about
that
how
goes above my pay grade, TT. I don't even know what a transhumanist is.
That's like implanting the Neuralink into people, like connecting robots.
Oh, yeah. You're right. I'm not for that. I definitely agree with you that is definitely not God. And
yeah, but time out. You know what Elon is for? Babies, and having lots of babies, and not having
babies, man.
Millions of abortions every year, like people on the other side of the aisle really support and want to happen. So you tell me which one's more anti-God.
Yeah, well, there's an argument on that on both sides. I mean, let's see. What's the Zoom link for this? Not sure if focus on the job performance. Trump killed it in the job performance. He did a good job on a lot of levels, but did a bad job on a lot of levels too. The biggest problem with Trump, and this is coming. I like Trump. Okay, I liked him before he was president. I liked his books. I read a lot of his books. He was a firm businessman that knew how to get shit done. And you can't disagree with that. Okay, that's what he was. So when he became president, why I liked him, why I voted for him, is I felt this country needed someone that knows how to run a business. And when he came in, I mean, did he reduce the debt? Not at all. But he was keeping it under control until the pandemic. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done. But I definitely think Trump doesn't know how to keep his fucking mouth shut. Like, he says the most outlandish stuff. Some people find it funny, but clearly other people hate it. So that's why it's so polarizing. And I think if anyone wants to point a finger as to why it was so polarizing, I mean, a lot of that blame does fall on Trump because he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. But I will say everybody can learn from their mistakes. And it does seem like he's learned a little bit because he's pretty much keeping his mouth shut and just he's almost playing Biden's card. Biden hid in his basement during the entire election, and it worked for him. So Trump's kind of just like, I'm not debating. I'm not doing this. I'm just going to sit back and, I'm going to fight these cases. And it's the best media exposure you could ever get if you really think about it. So it's brilliant. Trump has learned nothing. Someone said, okay, well, that's a matter of opinion. That's it. So let's move on, okay? Because we could go with the politics, but I'm going to have fun with this, folks. And if you don't like it, just don't join WTF, because we're going to have fun talking politics through the election, because it's going to be everywhere. And it's just an easy target for us to pick on because, listen, like, there's going to be very polarizing discussions on both sides. Steven doesn't like Trump, and me, like, listen, like, my wife has kind of taken me and brought me more to the middle. Like, I like Kennedy. I'm not going to lie. I really like what Kennedy stands for. I just got to learn a little bit more about, him and the different things he's doing as we go. So listen, like, we could talk any way you want. And listen, if you guys are all for the Democratic Party and who's over there, so be it. Like, that's
listen, Chris, just because I don't like the guy, let's go, baby.
There we go. Make America great again. Oh, no shit. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So let's move on to another thing. We're going to come back to some of the comments coming in from YouTube. Thanks, everybody, especially TikTok, Instagram's got some comments, YouTube, Facebook. Thank you all for your comments. That's what makes the show so fun, is this show's all about ranting, raving, and sometimes arguing. And hey, yeah, that's why a lot of people show up to the show. That's why every week we have thousands of viewers on this show and growing. But let's talk about something that's, I think, a little bit more relevant for the times, and not only relevant, very telling of where we're headed. So, I study economics like a freaking nerd. And, when I was in Wall Street, I got really good at understanding trends and leading and lagging indicators. largely because as an advisor, we had to know these things. I just took an interest to it. So what is a leading and what is a lagging indicator? Well, let me give you an example. A lagging indicator is real estate. If you're watching real estate or you're just looking at real estate as a gauge of where we're at with the economy, you're getting you're getting the wrong things because you're looking at a lagging indicator. But if you're looking at logistics, if you're looking at shipping companies and logistics and like shipping containers and box orders, anything that has to do with shipping and logistics, what you're seeing is a leading indicator. And if any of you were just paying attention, and this isn't the first we've heard of this, I mean, shipping containers from China, the price is way down. Why? Because they're anticipating less shipments, okay? Not only that, UPS, you all know UPS, all right? United Parcel Services, like the brown trucks, with the nice gentlemen and women that get out in the brown outfits that deliver your packages. Well, clearly they know a little something that the economists of the world don't know, and that the Fed seems to just be ignoring, and that the dude wouldn't know anyway. I mean, clearly we can all agree to disagree that the dude wouldn't have a clue what's going on, even if it slapped him in the face. But UPS just laid off or is laying off 12,000 people. Whew. I guess you could, someone could argue that and say, yeah, but how many people did they hire during the pandemic? Because that's been the argument. All the tech companies hired a whole bunch of people and they're laying people off, but they're still above where they were before. And maybe that's the case here, but 12,000 people, 12,000 highly compensated people. Because do you guys remember that pay increase that UPS drivers got? It was pretty freaking good. UPS drivers make really good money. They got really good benefits. And now 12,000 of them are going to be unemployed. What does that tell you, folks? Well, Stephen, what does it say? Because that right there is one of the best leading indicators you're ever going to see as to where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, UPS fell short of Wall Street revenue estimates Tuesday, reporting drops in shipping volume, both internationally and domestically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like one other comments, and this is not UPS or any shipping, but Mary Mack, I think that is Mary MCC, said zombie stores and bankruptcies with Rite Aids. Have any of you drove around lately? I was just driving around the other day, and there was like I passed 2 Rite Aids that aren't Rite Aids anymore. Like you could see like in the stucco, like where it used to be a Rite Aid, but it no longer is. Like what's happening when pharmacies start going out of business? Whew, I don't know what to say on that one, but
yeah. I mean, on top of UPS, I mean, there's, the ADP, which are private jobs, private payroll. They track it with ADP. It's kind of like an estimate that comes out before the official numbers that follow. But private payroll growth slowed to just 107,000 in January, well below expectations. They were expecting 158,000. So revised it pretty far down. Leisure and hospitality reported the biggest increase with an addition of 28,000, while trade, transportation, and utilities added 23. Construction rose by 22. The release comes 2 days ahead of the Labor Department's non-farm payroll report, which is expected to show growth, less than expected as well. So this, jobs look like they're down. I mean, if I look at kind of some of the companies over the last few months that have had layoffs, just to give you an idea of it. Twitch laid off 35% of their workforce. Hasbro laid off 20%. Spotify 17%. Levi's 15%. Xerox 15%. Wayfair 13%. Washington Post 10%. eBay 9%. Business Insider 8%. I think they're going to go bankrupt personally. PayPal's down, Charles Schwab down, BlackRock down, Citigroup down, Pixar down. So iRobot cut 31% of jobs. And then this is interesting right here. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics, their quarterly consensus has 332,000 private sector job gains in Q2 of 23 versus what they said back then, which was 603,000. So they actually revised down from Q2 of last year, almost 50%. So it just goes to show you when some of these numbers do come out, it seems to be almost just propaganda, trying to make things seem a lot better than they are. I mean, so when you look at stuff like that, you hear a lot right now from the administration, from the media, that everything's great in the country. The economy's doing great. There's so many jobs. Everybody's working. But then you see in reality, people are saying how they're struggling. They can't afford to buy groceries, rent it, and their mortgages are higher than they've ever been. All this stuff on the real level. I saw a statistic I didn't have a chance to vet, but it said that we just hit a record high of people that are working 2 full-time jobs just to pay for things.
I know a lot of people.
It's never been higher in the country. So.
I know people in my family working 2 full-time jobs. I know a ton of people in my very close circle that were retired from an industry job, getting a pension, that went back to work full-time. And it ain't because they want to go back to work. So, like, you tell me what's going on out there. Like, are things rosy and good? Hospitality, okay, is one of the most well-known lagging indicators. So if you're looking at hospitality or restaurants as a judge of where we're going in the future for the economy, you're off. But I do want to hit a couple things because there's some great comments that came in and some things that are worth talking about. So Squeakers from TikTok said UPS is replacing managers with AI, saying that no drivers are being laid off. It's only managers. So 12,000 managers. I mean, we'll do a little bit of a fact checking on that, because I'm going to do a YouTube video, which this show, we kind of just go off the cuff sometimes, and it pisses people off. They're like, these guys don't even know what they're talking about. We're just reading off the news and giving you our opinion. Yeah, sometimes we don't fucking know what we're talking about, but we're just kind of going down a path. And we're not fact checking this stuff. It's straight from the news. My YouTube videos, I will tell you, we spend extensive time. My team spends extensive time fact checking things, which is why some people are going to be pissed off about the video I just did, which is essentially talking politics, but it's all fact checked, very deeply fact checked. And over here, with the video we're going to do for YouTube in regards to logistics, we're going to research all the logistics companies. And I want to get over here to Damian Robinson on YouTube. I want to give him a shout out in a second, but we're going to talk about railroads like CSX. We got Joseph, who is retired, from the railroad, and he knows a lot about what's going on there. All of his friends still work there. Slowing down. We're going to look at all of logistics, whether or not UPS is laying off managers because AI, cybernet is taking their jobs. We'll figure that out. And if that is the case, holy cow, that's a lot of freaking managers. Anyway, let's see.
Just a quick update on that. It does look like it is a managerial restructuring, and it's due to the gigantic union deal that they made with their drivers just a few months ago. So, and that was to avoid all the drivers striking and basically having no UPS. So
I like our UPS driver. I'm glad they're not getting laid off.
Yeah, I mean, it's unions are a really interesting topic. I mean, that's actually something that would probably make a really good video to kind of get a little more in depth, because they are so important to pay people what they earn and deserve and not take advantage of workers. But the other time, but like everything, if it goes too far, it digs into the actual company and what they're able to do. And like, what is that balance? It's just an interesting topic.
Absolutely. So I want to come over here to YouTube and give YouTube a little bit of love. We got Damian Robinson. So Damian Robinson, first off, he was overseas. So I want to give a big shout out to Damian and your service. So thank you for what you do and what you did and what all servicemen and women and our current military, our vets, our front line, everything. Thank you so very much for fighting for our freedom and keeping this country the land of the free. I know it's quite a fight, but I want to give props to that. So he was saying that during the war, he saw a lot of leading and lagging indicators, and rightfully so. He was, you could say, front line. Like, he would have absolutely seen that. So, Damian, with seeing that, that comes to your next comment here, where you're saying CSX. And if you don't know what CSX is, the big conglomerate railroad, look it up and you can learn that. But they just did that right after they hired a bunch of people and just completed the union deal. I worked for them and got let go 6 months later. And I know Joe Kovacevic on our team has also said that he's seen a lot of layoffs, a lot of people. Now, in the railroad, most people just get laid off. They don't get fired because of the union, but there's been mass people laid off or just kind of said, hey, we don't have any work, sit home. Right there. Dexter is in logistics. So Dexter said no more guaranteed deliveries. Kathy said, got her Be Your Own Bank book, came in the mail, got one for her son as well. Listen, that's an awesome legacy. Teach your kids. Current employee will work more. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, a lot of cost cutting, but why would companies cost cut? Why would UPS, even if it's just managerial, lay off 12,000 people, 12,000 managers? Cost cutting. Why? Slowing down. It's the only reason companies don't cut a whole bunch of people and lay 12,000 people off if things are robust and they're just cranking, right? They lay people off when things are slowing down. That's all I'm trying to make a point here is when you're following leading indicators, logistics, CSX, UPS, you can start to see where we're headed, and it isn't good. It just isn't good. Let's see. What else do we got here? CSX converting a lot of their trains to be controlled by remote. Ooh, how fun. Steven, man, trains being controlled by remotes. Can we get one of those remote controls? Man, that'd be kind of cool. Like when I got to move some real heavy shit, bunch of cars, I just got a remote and I can just drive my train around. You know, we did that as kids, right? How many of you love trains? Like, you know, like model trains, like the ones, you know, during Christmas, we always have this train that goes around our Christmas tree. It's super cool. I just love trains. Love them. I don't know. What else? Service, stay safe, praying for your safety.
So they work for CSX and things are slowing down.
Yeah. So it's just coming in, you know, just getting lots more clarification front line of people getting laid off, people slowing or logistics slowing down. So it's not our matter of opinion there. It's actually happening. Let's see, Miss. The government doesn't want you to watch the trial of Biden took PI January 26th in Oakland, California. Well, thank you for saying that because I didn't even know Biden was on trial. Funny how that happens. Every single news station that you can turn on has Trump all over it, right? All over it about the trial, about how he's such a bad guy and they're like, let's destroy Trump. It's just free media for him. I mean, think about it from a marketing standpoint. He's just sitting there being like, man, I don't even need to pay for this shit. This is the best advertising anyone can get because the people that aren't going to vote for Trump, they're not going to vote for Trump, period. But the people that are, like, it just puts him in front. But then Biden, you know, being on trial, nowhere. Peep, mum's the word. You can't even find it. I had no idea. So thanks for letting us know. The ocean thing was controlled by PlayStation controller. You mean that sub that supposedly or didn't implode? I don't know whether or not it actually happened because that was weird. Anyway, but that was a PlayStation controller. Well, hey man, at least they're making good use of those old PlayStation controllers. I mean, better than putting them in a landfill. I mean, well. Anyway, yeah, we're just having some fun. What else is in the news? There's so much stuff. We're just trying to have a little bit of fun here in the last.
Just on the financial side, we kind of update the weekly mortgage demand. So, weekly mortgage demand drops as buyers struggle to find affordable homes. So, applications for a mortgage to purchase fell 11% last week from the previous week. The average contract for a 30-year fixed conforming remains unchanged at 6.78%. So even with the lower rates, mortgage demand is still down because homes prices are just very, very, very high right now still.
So what's going to happen to home prices, right? If weekly mortgage demand is dropping, even though rates are coming down, it's a pricing problem, folks. What happens when there's a pricing problem? Price needs to meet demand. It's got to come down. Pricing has to come down. I know there's a lot of real estate experts, and I've had many of them on the show that say, no, price of real estate is going to stay or go higher because of demand, but it can't if your demand literally is priced out of buying the houses. Now, here's what I could tell you. This is an interesting dynamic, and you guys can chew on this one in the last couple minutes. If the Fed does drop rates and mortgage rates come down, depending on how far they come down, if we go off of Fannie and Freddie in their reports, which is probably the best one to use, they're saying by the end of 2024, you could see 5.8% on 30-year fixed mortgages. If that were to happen, that opens up, and by the math, like literally this gentleman that was on you can watch for the podcast, but you'll learn all about it on that podcast. He had all the data. 7 million new home buyers become eligible for mortgages at current incomes. So what you got to understand is people aren't making more money, but as the price or as the interest rate of a mortgage comes down, it opens up more buyers that can actually afford a house, not because they make more, but because the rate's lower. And it's all just fitting in this little box, folks. We talk about it all the time. If you fit in the little box, you can get yourself a mortgage, especially if you're W-2. Now, if you're a 1099 person, mostly like I am, it doesn't matter if you make millions of dollars, they're not going to give you a loan. Proof right here. But nonetheless, if you're a W-2 income earner and you got all your ducks in the row and mortgage rates do come down, a lot more people will become eligible for these unaffordable homes. So it'll be interesting. I don't know what way it's going to go, but I definitely can tell you just by pure logic, price must come down to meet demand. So I don't know. Chew on that one a little bit. And then there's always Taylor Swift. I think Taylor Swift recently in her boyfriend or not boyfriend, or whether it's real or not real, and whether or not she's on her. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. But, Taylor Swift's been getting a lot of press lately, tons of press. So why? How come she's all over the news? I don't know. I'll let your mind run wild on that one as well. So there's a lot of stuff happening out there, folks. A lot of stuff. But I think
if I can give a quick update just on the U.S. national debt clock, it's kind of to pull that up each week just to kind of document it. So we're up to $34.15 trillion in U.S. debt.
All right.
So that's always fun.
And they're doing a good job, Stephen. Listen, as long as the numbers are going up, the government and the dude are doing their job.
Just to put that in perspective, this is from Representative Thomas Massie. He says, of Kentucky, I believe. He says, our debt is increasing by $1 trillion every 136 days, which means your family's share of debt is increasing by $10,000 every 136 days. Just tax the rich? We'd have to tax 1 million millionaires $1 million each every 136 days. Just mind-boggling numbers.
Rick comes on all the time. We love Rick on TikTok. Rick G-E-E-G, I would say that is, but not to mention the fake insurrection, oil line blow up, LBGQ in our schools, mass looting, Second Amendment. Yeah, but none of that's in the news, Rick. So we don't cover that on this show because, of course, all the stuff that's the truth doesn't make it into the news. Hint, hint. But you already know that anyway.
I am
in the mood this year to piss people off. Shit's fun.
I got one more for you. So the national clock, actually, the national debt clock has been doing this thing where they have a secret window each day, and it opens up into these kind of little memes and kind of poking fun at things. So this one was from yesterday or 2 days ago. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll read it. So it starts at the top, and it says, how was it that you were able to keep the Fed pyramid scheme going for so many years? And it said, we had a fourfold strategy. Money buys you many things. 1910, first we created a panic to convince the public that a new system of banking was needed. Then we paid off the politicians. Next, we co-opted the press. That leaves only one thing that we're most proud of. And they said, turning a proud and prosperous nation upside down in artificial boom and bust cycles? No, the fact that we were able to convince the world that unsustainable Ponzi scheme bonds were actually assets. Take that for what it's worth.
Yep. And you know what, folks, as we wrap up our awesome time here on WTF, I want to make mention that this afternoon we have Wealth Webinar at 1 o'clock. You can register by going to chrisnaugle.com. Register for it. We'll give you my 3 books for free, no strings attached. You don't have to pay for the webinar. We do it for free every single week from 1 p.m. Eastern till 2:30. And today we're going to be talking oil. That's right. We've got a really awesome guest coming on, and we're going to dive deep into oil, and we're going to talk a lot about how politics has affected the oil industry and what's happened over the last couple of years. And we're going to say, is oil a good investment? Is it not? Is it a good tax write-off? Is it not? And then you all can make the decision. But I do want to end on a good note. How many of you actually, truly, and I'll ask the men and the women, how many of you actually truly think Taylor Swift is hot? That's what I'm going to lead you with. And I'd love to get the answer somewhere, somehow. But I'll give you my answer. I don't find her attractive at all. Call me crazy, but I don't think she's good looking. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll let you guys say what you got to say. Maybe you think she's beautiful. Maybe you don't. But I'm just not seeing it. Not seeing it. Money ain't buying happiness with that one. I'm going to tell you that. So with that being said, what's her boyfriend's name?
Travis Kelce.
Kelce. I got Brandon yelling out. Travis Kelce, good job, buddy. But I don't know, man. I don't know what you see. With that being said, we're going to wrap today's What the F Up on Taylor Swift. Is she hot or is she not? We'll see you next time.